Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man, Andy Gillard here. Hope everyone's doing well right now.
Hi everybody, Matt Guy here. Hope your year is going well thus far.
Off to a flying start with his. Will they even be? I don't even think that there's nothing going to be controversial in this episode whatsoever. Well, we already mentioned Banshees of Inisherin last week, and already there has been response. But as I caveated at the end of last week's episode, I accept that it's a good film, just not for me, and it bored me to tears. And it missed out because there's 5 worse films. Very much worse films on here. Hello everyone.
See, I think that's fair because, Donnie Darko, I nearly called it Danny Darko then. That's a film that's really held to quite high esteem by people. But I think it's an absolute stinking turd of a movie. It just does not work for me on any level. So I completely get you, Stu, that a film can be great and you can still think it's shit because it doesn't check any of your boxes.
And weirdly, I really like Donnie Darko.
There you go.
Considering it's usually not my kind. It's the kind of thing that I'd kind of poo-poo as nonsense, but for some mad reason, I did like it. I ain't seen it for years though. I mean, it might not stand up at all, but going from the last time, I've probably seen it about 2 or 3 times max, and it never got any worse. So I'm taking that in the win column.
That's all you can do. I reckon you're probably on my team with that one, Matt. I think.
Yeah, I am. I remember watching it again, taking age and maturity and wisdom, thinking, you know what, I'll get it now, 10 years on. And I still don't. So maybe I'll try it in my 40s because, and give it another go because I just don't. It was just, you'd think as well with it being kind of dark and very alternative, I suppose, that it'd be right up my alley. But it's just pants. I don't see the appeal to it, and it's one of those. But you can't please all the people all the time, can you?
No, absolutely not. Oddly enough, I said exactly the same thing about a film earlier today. I was talking with Katie about Titanic because that's getting a re-release, isn't it, for Valentine's Day? And that's another film that I feel like maybe I was too young when I watched it, so didn't appreciate it because all of the critics I like say how good a film it is, but to me, it was just unwatchable pap. So I wonder if it's just a case of I was too young and maybe now I'll appreciate it. But I don't fancy a 3-hour at the cinema watching Titanic in case it sucks again. So, I don't know.
Just wait till your 40s to watch it in a few months.
Fuck off.
What says romance on Valentine's Day like the story of infidelity and millions of pounds and literal kilograms of metal being strewn at the bottom of the ocean?
I don't really see it as that romantic a story either, to be honest. I don't know. Maybe I'm just cynical on these things, but it just didn't work on any level. And I really like pretty much everyone involved in it. But nah, not for me. Anyway, we were going to do our top 5, bottom 5, however we're going to call it, the films that let us down this year. But there was a bit of a running theme on a couple of our picks. So what we've done is we've slightly changed it. We're going to do the 3 films that either let us down the most or we thought were the worst films of the year. We're going to do a couple of the listener suggestions on films that they didn't enjoy. And then we've got a couple of studios to discuss, which we think probably didn't have the best 2022. So we'll do our bottom 3s, however you want to call it. So my first one on my list is quite low down. It was Uncharted. I think I went in I really wanted it to be something. I thought it was going to be really fun, and I was expecting it to be Tomb Raider, and I quite enjoyed the Tomb Raider film, the most recent one, with Alicia Vikander. So I kind of hoped that that's what we were going to get, and what's his face, Tom Holland was in it. And at the time, I didn't hate Tom Holland, but I think that was the film that sort of tipped it over to yeah, we've got too much Tom Holland going on right now. We need a little bit less of it. And plus, Marky Mark's in it too. He's pretty much dog shit in everything he does. So I don't know why I had high hopes for it in retrospect, but it didn't work for me on any level. The film which came out a few months later, which was The Lost City, ended up being exactly what I wanted Uncharted to be. Silly, fun nonsense, and that's precisely what I got in a Sandra Bullock and Harry Potter film. Not at all what I expected, and it ended up being a much better movie. So yeah, Uncharted was the one that was a bit of a misery to start the year, I thought.
I really did enjoy the Lost City. It was even more stupid than the trailer suggested,
Yeah, absolutely.
and it kind of worked. I don't know why it's almost lost in a way that no one's talked about it since the week it came out, which is quite sad, really, because it was a fun little film. Uncharted. What did I say? As soon as I came out, I thought, Andy's going to hate this. He's going to hate this with every fibre of his being, because it's exactly what it says. It's nonsense, and it's quite faithful to the games in a way. In other ways, it's not at all. But I said that I compared it to Sir Cage's National Treasure films in the similar kind of vibes. Not necessarily quality-wise, obviously, but if you like, that's how I sold it to my mom. I said, if you like National Treasure, which I know you do, go and watch this, and I doubt you'll be disappointed. And she enjoyed it as well. So I think it was what it was, and I did watch it 4 times in the end last year. But it's just instantly rewatchable. It doesn't mean it's great, and I completely understand why it's in here. I expected it to be lower than this, really. But yeah, it was one of them where you either liked it or you didn't like it. I don't think there was many kind of okay. There was a lot of you like it and it's 6.5, 7 out of 10. It's fine, or they just despised it. There was no best film of the year, no worst thing in the world. It was just very kind of either side of middle.
Did you give it a try at all, Matt, or were you just put off?
No, I didn't, because I didn't have any vested interest in the games or anything like that. There's not many fantastic game adaptations out there. He says as one of the best apparently in the world has come out this way. But not Tom Holland is. You're exactly right, Andy, in that he's got the. I was about to say Ryan Gosling. It's not him, obviously. What's his name? One at Wrexham.
Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds, of course. He's got, he's slightly having that effect on me at the moment, where I just see him in everything. And at that time when Uncharted was coming out, I was just like, it's not really for me. And I'm glad I kind of missed out on it, because the reviews I did read kind of gave me flashbacks and PTSD of the Prince of Persia. So
yes, that's very accurate. I think
that's remarkable in terms of how it translates to the game. I think you're pretty spot on with that.
Matt, what's your next film for your letdown?
And the letdown it is, because it's not that it's awful as a film, but that my expectation levels were so high and the end delivery was quite a bit under that bar, and that was Jurassic World Dominion. It was just not very good. In that, with the trailer, it gave the impression that this was going to be like a raucous round the world trip of the Age of the Dinosaur, in the same way that we got the War of the Planet of the Apes, or whichever the last one of that one was. And it really wasn't. It was like it almost had like Jurassic Park 3 vibes, in that we've just got this formula. We're just going to go back to the island. We're not going to explore how these dinosaurs have ruined the world. And it ended up being a film about moths or whatever it was. Like, not moths, it was locusts, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And Who wants to see that? Like, it just felt like a massively missed opportunity to have like some really cool location shots superimposed, obviously, with and really turn that story into like how the human race is struggling to survive with the onslaught of dinosaurs, and not actually we just do this at a park. Do you know what I mean? That's how the trailer made it out, like it was going to be a cataclysmic event of humanity, and it just wasn't that at all.
I didn't bother watching the third. I didn't really love the second. The first one was fine, but the second just felt a bit vacuous. Like it was all surface level. There was nothing really beyond it. And then, like people who'd seen it, yourself and our friend Ash Dolan had seen it, and both of you just sort of slaughtered it. And I thought, I'm not going to give this any of my time.
Second is in Jurassic World.
Yes, sorry,
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
new trilogy. Yeah.
Yeah. I I benefited for obviously not watching the trailer and ruining things for myself. Going in completely blind, and I remember at the time coming out thinking, okay, I'm kind of glad it's over now. That's it, no more. Obviously, the over there, all of them, apart from that one yet. And it's up there. Obviously, it's been surpassed by Avatar now. But as in a franchise that I kind of love, not as much as Dave Evans, obviously, but Jurassic Park, Jurassic World. Again, like you, Andy, I didn't like Fallen Kingdom. I thought it was nonsense. It was shit. But I thought this had a bit of redemption in it compared to what that was. But looking back on it with time, it wasn't very good. There's a few good set pieces as you'd expect, but it seemed like it's something like a kind of get the band back together because we've got to pay for the divorce kind of situation. One last time for the road, and just a missed opportunity, I think, really, more than anything else. And there was the redemption of actually having a proper raptor in there was nice. We'll say that much. Obviously, what we know raptors to look like now rather than what they did in '93. But you're kind of clutching at prehistoric straws there.
That's a low bar, isn't it?
Yeah,
if that's the best thing about it.
It was all right. It was fine. But even as someone who loves Jurassic Park, Jurassic World films, it wasn't. I think Jurassic Park 3 is probably very well summed up.
Well, interestingly, I've just looked on the Google machine. According to giantfreakingrobot.com, Jurassic World 4 and 5 are in development. So whether or not it made money and they're going back to the well or quite what, I don't know. But
it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, does any of it make any sense though? So, but yeah, so we're getting more of it whether you want it or not by the sounds of it. Stu, tell us a film that you didn't enjoy.
Well, there's a couple that have been sliced off this list now with this cull. So yeah, third place was Lightyear. Just shit. And broke my rule day. I watched the trailer, the teaser trailer, and the actual trailer because obviously, who doesn't love Toy Story? And knowing that this wasn't Toy Story, obviously, with different voices and whatever, and it was the astronaut that inspired the toy, blah blah blah. It was just a bit boring. It was when you go into a CG animated film or animated film in general, and you don't expect to be bored, do you? And whether it was in the middle of the day and taking that risk of, oh no, there's going to be kids around to annoy me. The kids were completely silent, and I kind of wish they hadn't been. I wish I'd had some kind of outlet for my rage because I was just sitting there and thinking, please hurry up and end, because it was just so dull. And I spoke to a few other people, and they kind of got it as well. And it wasn't comparing it to Toy Story because it's nothing to do with it really at all. It's just it shares a name. That is it. That is the only thing. And obviously, there's a lot of, well, I said at the time, if you want to go down that kind of route, there's tick boxy stuff in there, which there's no reason for it. It doesn't make any sense at all. But again, it's a silly animated film that just didn't appeal to me whatsoever. As soon as I'd watch it, I thought I'm never watching that again at all, and I can't envision a time where I ever will, because it was just boring. And that, like we've said before, that is sometimes worse than being shit.
Yeah, I agree. I think I quit after about 10, 15 minutes. I tried it on Disney Plus, and it just felt really slow and ponderous, and not what I want from a Buzz Lightyear film. I mean, I wasn't expecting it to be Toy Story, because we know it's not. It's as you said, it's the character that the toy is set on. So I went in with expectations to be something else, and it really was something else, but not in a good way. So yeah, like 15 minutes, and that's not really enough to make me want to go back and watch it. I just found it really quite tedious, to be perfectly honest. So I just didn't bother with that one in the end. Moving on, my next film is also a Disney film, and it's Disenchanted. Now, I love Amy Adams. I love Maya Rudolph. The original is a Disney classic, come to life quite literally. It's the story of a princess who escapes her animated world and comes to Manhattan. The jokes come from the disparity between living in a cartoon kingdom and living in this real world concrete jungle. It was really fun. It was really uplifting. It was something different from Disney, which they've got a formula that works well for them, so they don't always veer from the path. Disenchanted is not that movie though. Like, Adams's family moved from from Manhattan to the suburbs, effectively, this small place in the countryside. It appears that in the decade or so since we left the characters, she hasn't grown whatsoever. She still gets confused between the real world and the cartoon world. And like, well, you've been in this world too long to still be this naive and this stupid. And then in the plot, she makes a wish upon a star, or some sort of nonsense, and starts to turn the real world into the cartoon world. It sort of becomes the film that the original film was taking the piss out of, like lampooning the Disney princesses, and then it sort of becomes that movie. The only real positive I can say for it is there's one song called Badder, which was Amy Adams and Maya Rudolph duetting together, and that's one of the best Disney songs in the last decade. That was fantastic. But the rest of the film was a real wet fart of a movie. It was such a letdown when the first one is such a classic.
I haven't seen this, but it's nothing that, really tickles my pickle to begin with, to be honest. But I think, like, when it comes to that genre, it's really difficult to do anything that isn't or doesn't feel like just spinning that money wheel and seeing if what pops out the other end is serviceable or not. That's a difficulty.
I think it's telling that it went straight to Disney Plus rather than going to the cinema screens, to be honest. In retrospect, I think you can see why it didn't do that.
Zero interest in this. I haven't seen the original, and even I know a lot of people like it, but I just couldn't care less. it just never give me any kind of vibes of I'll enjoy this film at all. So I think this is yet another live action Disney film that just hasn't hit at all. How many is there now? 10, maybe?
Feels like it, yeah. It seems to be every year or so there's another one that comes out and doesn't quite make the impact that they're hoping.
Maleficent, probably the best one, maybe?
I haven't seen that one, to be fair, but it's got good reviews. But then Enchanted had really good reviews, so who knows? Anyway, moving on. Matt?
So this was a film that piqued my interest in a time where I thought I was just trying to see as much as I could, trying to try new things, films that I wouldn't normally work. And I'm I'm not shitting on it because it's an all-female lead cast or anything like that. But the 355
Oh dear.
was pretty awful. It's awful, not in that like it's how do I put this? It just offers absolutely nothing new in the world traveling spy genre at all. Like you would expect that it wouldn't be just super lazy tropes about characters with only like one dimensional reasons for being, and a super weapon is stolen that is, or science has been stolen to weaponize to make a world war. Okay, it's just like the fight scenes are just feel flat. The motives for the characters just feel like it just offers nothing that you haven't seen a million times before. And the fact that there's a slight bit of curiosity about it because it's an all-female cast, so what will they do differently? Like, only gets you about 15 minutes through before it just becomes just another tired spy. It hasn't even got like the charm of it trying to be like an Ocean's 11. Like, there isn't the comedic side of it, even with like a pretty stellar cast, or there's at least some high profile names in it. So it was just pretty poor. And for Amazon.com to give it 4.1 tells you everything, because nothing doesn't get at least 4.5. So yeah, I mean, I didn't enjoy it at all.
I remember seeing the trailer for this. It was probably before Uncharted, and thinking, I can think of nothing worse than sitting through this ever. It looked like a kind of a bad cross between that shit Ghostbusters film, Charlie's Angels, and like one of the Timothy Dalton Bond films. And all them things on their own are fine, but mixed together, I've not heard a single person who has seen this film who liked it. Not one.
It wouldn't have been like as bad if they'd have leaned more into the Charlie's Angel side of it, but like that then obviously that comes with its own issues, doesn't it, in terms of like representation and titillation and everything else. Like, it doesn't go like, it goes for the femme fatale, but not in a in a way, in an exploitative way. So that's fine, I understand it, but it's just not good. It's simply just not good. There's no like way of like describing it any more eloquently than that, really. It's just not a very well put together film.
It seems like it seems like a film out of time. Like, if this had been made like 10, 15 years ago, and they could have gone a certain other way and got away with some certain things, it would have been a lot better. Because Charlie's Angels and Full Throttle are both shit films, but they are fun. They're enjoyable.
The lean into the camp, which I think helps, doesn't it?
But you would, like Matt said, you wouldn't be able to. Well, you would do it now, but then you get absolutely be cancelled and all kinds of nonsense that happen to you. It just seems like a bad idea to try and do it now. And obviously, we've had loads. It's not about female bashing or empowerment or whatever. It's just make a good film and not try and do something when you know you can't do things properly.
I mean, in fairness, I'm just looking at it now. So the director is Simon Kinberg, whose only other directing credit is X-Men Dark Phoenix.
Oh,
which
fucking hell.
speaks quite a lot, to be honest. But looking on Rotten Tomatoes, it's got 24% from the critics, so it's obviously not liked. The audience score is 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm genuinely surprised it's so high. I haven't seen it. I wanted to, because I like Jessica Chastain, but I never got round to it. And as Stu said, I've never heard anyone say a good word about this movie, so I never gave it a chance in the end. So I don't know where this 86% has come from.
No, you just can't trust people.
You can't, can you?
Your proof.
Yeah, terrible. Right, Stu, you're up next, please.
Okay, so my second. I mean, you look at this and you think, this ticks every single one of my boxes. It's got swords in it. It's from the past. It's from one of the favourite directors who we talked about on here before with the Lighthouse and The Witch. But The Northman was absolutely arse. It was, again, like I said, like I said with Lightyear, how can you make this boring? I don't understand. I've seen so many Vikings and Viking films, and you think, okay, we've had Lord of the Rings 20 years ago. Obviously, that's fantasy. This is Norse mythology, kind of. And I think you described it as the Lion King at the time, which has got very similar vibes in it to that. But again, it all made sense later on when I looked into it, and he said that it wasn't the film that he wanted to make, and there'd been studio interference, but he'd accepted it. And you think, well, there you go. Then that's clearly what the problem is here, because it's not weird enough to be his film, which means it's toned down. It's not action heavy enough because that's not the kind of director he seems to be, even though he's had a budget this time around. It just seems it's a bit of everything and nothing at the same time. It's trying to be one thing. It's trying to be Thor, but at the same time, it's trying to be this kind of statement about relationships and how you're brought up and the effects of the afterlife and Valhalla. And it's not one thing or the other, which is fine in itself, obviously, because we've talked about that kind of film before, but it just doesn't work, and it clearly doesn't work because, and you can see that it's stitched together when it was never meant to be this, and my God, you can tell. And again, making a Viking film that's 2 hours, 2 hours 20 minutes or something like that. I know it wasn't exactly short, and it felt as long as it is.
You felt every minute of it, didn't you?
Yeah, it was terrible, man. And I know it's got a few things in there where a few people love it, and I think Nate again, Nate put it in his top 5. I just didn't get it. It just didn't hit me at all. And this is nails all day long, that my kind of film, and it just didn't deliver at all.
Yeah, I didn't hate it. Don't get me wrong, but I think I went in wanting something a bit more than what it was. It's the story on which Hamlet is based, and obviously The Lion King is effectively a retelling of Hamlet. So there are parallels between all of them, but The Lion King is the best version of that story. The Northman just felt really drab and dour, and I don't quite get this fascination lately with Vikings. They're not that interesting. It's a bit like we had with pirates a few years ago. It's just now moved on to the Norse mythology, and it just doesn't really grab me in the same way. But the Northman, it just felt like everyone was slightly miscast as well. Like, I thought Alexander Skarsgård as the main dude was great, but Nicole Kidman just felt so out of place in that world.
With that accent.
God, yeah. Like Ethan Hawke, I like Ethan Hawke. I think he's a good actor, but he doesn't fit in that world. I don't know why you need to have Americans doing this, which is clearly a very, very European type thing. So, like, getting a Skarsgård in there, quids in. But the rest of them, they all felt very out of place, and it just, yeah. It wouldn't make... I don't think I had massively high hopes, so I wasn't hugely disappointed. I just left feeling that was 2 hours, 20 minutes wasted.
It felt like a real shame, this one, because it had the... I don't know if it was just good editing and a good trailer that made it look like it was going to be just this brutal gore fest. Like 300, but set in a different time and location. But it just wasn't that, was it, at all? It's just a massively missed opportunity, and it was a shame because it had all of the ingredients to be great. But okay, Sarah.
It was a lot of walking around and hiding in bushes. That's all it was. Oh, and Anya Taylor-Joy, who I generally like, but yeah, not much in it. Speaking of people I generally like, I feel really bad for putting this film on my list. But Don't Worry, Darling was such a missed opportunity. I like Florence Pugh acts the shit out of this film. She deserves so much better than he's given in this movie. And it's not that it was a terrible film, but it's just that my hopes were quite high purely because it was based on her character. You've got Nick Kroll in there, who I'm a big fan of. It was directed and written by Olivia Wilde, who did Booksmart, which I thought was such a wonderful movie. So I went in thinking we're going to be watching something that's a bit of a stylish and sexy Stepford Wives kind of sci-fi movie, and fucking what's his face, Harry Styles, should not be allowed to act anymore. There's one scene where he has to shout something at Florence Pugh's character as if to like really ram the point home of what's going on and the importance of things. He's really quote unquote acting his bollocks off. Like he's really trying his hardest, and his accent seems to go all the way from like Boston through Texas to Dublin and ends up in Yorkshire all in one sentence. And it's the hammiest bollocks I've ever heard. I couldn't stop laughing at this one scene because he was so like I did GCSE drama. When you were acting at school, you would have to project yourself to the back of the room so that they could hear you, because it's different when it's on stage to obviously on screen. And it felt like he was a GCSE student trying to act, and it was so hammy, it was so corny, it was terrible. It should have been so much better than it was. And I don't know if all of the story around the film, so like Shia LaBeouf getting sacked, but then he wasn't sacked, but he was really, because she was bringing her secret boyfriend onto it. I don't know if all of that sort of muddied the water and didn't help things, but just top to bottom, this film was a fucking mess, and I was really disappointed because I expected better.
I'm guessing Matt aced
No, I really wanted to for all those reasons. And me and Sam, we're going to the cinema we're going to go to cinema to go see it, because it even like piqued her interest, and she doesn't really like watch many films, so it's got to be something special to. Again, and another great looking trailer, but by the sounds of it, the delivery just wasn't what it was sold as. Which sounds like a right shame, really, because I am a bit of a secret Harry Styles fan. His newest album is a pop. I wouldn't go as far as to say masterpiece, but it's a very good pop album, because it's got a lot of like Peter Gabriel vibes in there.
Okay.
So I'm a bit of a Harry Styles fan, if I'm going to be honest with you, and for it to be shat on the way it has by like critics alike and yourself, and it's just doesn't make a great impression.
Well, I almost mentioned this last week because it was my number 10. I love this film. And I don't know if it was because all the stuff, like you said, about the build-up and all the kind of, they can't even sit next to each other in the premiere and whatever, all that kind of nonsense and everything that was going on around it. And we was going to go and have a date night and watch this because of the car crash that it seemed to be. And for whatever reason, it never happened. And I ended up watching it in October, I think. And I genuinely enjoyed it. I know it's kind of disguising his accent for what happens at the end, but it's just a bad accent. There's no way of getting around it. But yeah, she carries it massively, as she does in most films anyway. But I've never seen Stepford Wives ever, so that was a kind of reference point that I didn't have. So going into it, knowing something weird was going on, and it was something. I didn't exactly think it was going to be. It was what it was.
Yeah.
I didn't get it. So I was actually genuinely surprised. But again, we've talked before about how I'm quite stupid with these things, and I never get any clues to anything. Well, I thought, yeah, that was a nice, fun experience, and I thought about it way more than I should have done for a long time afterwards. And like I said before about things that make you feel something, it just got in my head. I know it's not great, but out of all the ones that when we were doing this and we was writing them down, I wrote them down as I went because of what happened last year. I couldn't think of what it was, but this was first on the list. I knew it was never going to be top 5, but if we'd have done top 10, it would have been 10 because I genuinely enjoyed it, and it is nonsense, and there's a lot of hamminess in it. I think overacting is probably the order of the day with a lot of people in this film, and it's almost like it's deliberate, but when you're not in that setting and you're in another setting, it carries on. So it's not deliberate; it's just bad acting. I don't know. I just, for some reason, I enjoyed it, and I didn't think I would.
There's a certain level of hate watch to it, I think. Like, I had Florence Pugh have not been in it, I think I would have probably enjoyed how bad it was, but it would still have been a bad film. But because she was in it, I just feel let down. Anyway, Matt, what's your next film, please?
So this is Fantastic Beasts 3, The Crime of Grindel Bollocks, or whatever his name is. Obviously, I'm gonna take all of these things and put it to one side. So I'm gonna take Johnny Depp's recasting, put it to one side. Okay, fine, I understand. I'm gonna take the J.K. Rowling trans hating stuff, and I'm gonna put it to one side. I'm gonna put that against my judgment of this film. Okay, Ezra Miller, I'm gonna take, and I'm gonna put that to one side. Right, okay. So I've got 3 pretty huge things that should make this shit anyway to begin with. But I'm going to put that all to one side. It shits on everything that makes Harry Potter and the Potter world and the canon and everything else. It just takes all those really good things and just punts it out the window. Harry Potter is about whimsical magic, and half of the joy of even though the later ones get a bit more serious and a bit more dark, it's still rooted in like the school and the like colourful magic and everything else about it. Fantastic Beasts 3 is just this like apocalyptical, serious, grey toned mess of a film that like never really it's bleak, but not bleak enough that it gives you any emotion. You don't feel anything about it. It's so bland, but it's so blandly bleak that it's unforgivably boring at the same time. Like, and then it does this hard reset on things like that are just impossible in the canon of Harry Potter. Like, McGonagall isn't born yet she exists as a grown woman, and stuff like this, and it's just a car crash of a film, and the whole crux of the film is who's this little deer going to bow to? And when I say I'm not joking, like I'm not joking. It's just it's really awful, and the writing was on the wall after the second one, which was really boring. I fell asleep. The first one I loved because it still had that essence of Potter about it. It was Potter. Yes, it was set in the past. Yes, it was set in another country, but it still had that element of playfulness, whimsicalness, and colour. This is far from it. This is like the printers run out of ink and we're running on just black and white now. And it was a real shit show. Hated it.
I haven't watched any of them. I'd planned on watching them, and then the second one came out and didn't get great reviews, so I thought, well, I'll see what the third one's about before deciding whether or not. And then, by all accounts, the third one's been so bad that it's probably killed the franchise. So I don't think I'm ever going to watch any of them at this point because they seem just devoid of fun and joy. And as you said, Potter, if nothing else, is genuinely quite joyous for the most. But no, I'm definitely not watching any of them, to be honest.
I mean, I planned on watching all. What is this now? 11 altogether. in before Hogwarts Legacy comes out, because that game looks incredible. And I've seen the first 4 a long, long time ago, and my sister's obviously big into this as much as I am into Lord of the Rings, and even she hated this film. She didn't shit on it as much as you just have, but she just said it didn't make sense. And I know what she means now.
No. Stu, what's your film, please?
Well, boys and girls, this is a turn up for the books. A film that Andrew didn't even know existed, and it is Mad God, which is, I saw the trailer for this years ago. For some reason, and it's in our good friend Tara's best format, which is stop motion animation, which is obviously inspired by Sledgehammer, best song of all time. But how do you make a film that's hour and 23 minutes long, which is an assassin's descendant through the underworld of tortured souls and whatever? It's just so dull again. And I think this is the first time in 20 odd years that I've turned a film off halfway through because I was so bored. And you look at the trailer again, you look at the trailer and you think, oh, this looks amazing. This has got to be one of the best things. But it was the same thing over and over and over and over again. And it's like, well, it's just not interesting. It's a good tech demo and it's very impressive. The animation's superb, but you've got Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio now, the same year, an actual good film, which is doing things better. I know it's like a little indie horror studio, whatever, but just do something with it. You don't just, it's gore for the sake of gore for best part ever hour and a half. There's no real story in it. It's just, oh, this new monster's even more repulsive than the last one. Oh, okay, we'll get through this. We'll find something here. It would have worked better as like an indie game, I think. If this had been a game, like, say, Inside or Limbo or something like that, it would have been nailed. Would have been superb, spot on. But as a film, it was just fucking wank. And the fact is, when you go on, this sums up Rotten Tomatoes now forever. The fact that, what is it, 93 critically? Yeah, no, 91% out of 90 reviews, critically acclaimed film. Shit. Utter shit.
I've not seen it. I hadn't even heard of it until you mentioned it earlier, Stu. And looking at the images on Google that are available, I was a bit like, what the fuck is this nonsense? But it doesn't look very evocative, but I kind of want to see it because of how bad it sounds. Like, you've made me think, oh, this might be, at least if nothing else, fun, silly bollocks. But looking at the dude Phil Tippett, which was a name I recognised, not as a director though. So I've looked at his directorial stuff: Starship Troopers 2, Mutant Land, Prehistoric Beast. Nothing really there. He's a visual effects guy. So he did all of the Twilight stuff. He was on Evolution, the original Starship Troopers. So he was on Jurassic Park as well. He was the dinosaur supervisor on Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
So he's got quite a pedigree there, and just not as a director, it sounds like.
All that makes a lot of sense, because visually it's fine, but there's no story there. It's an hour and a half tech demo. That's the problem. It's like a good idea even if it was like a 20-minute short film, like a Wallace and Gromit. You couldn't have. Well, you can, because we've got Curse the Were Rabbit, which is good, but that's the kind of you think, okay, like the Gruffalo and the Gruffalo's Child, half hour in and out, done, great. This was too long. It was too shit.
Yeah, I'm still want to see it. I've got it.
It's on Shudder as well.
Okay, brilliant. Right, so some of our listeners sent in some films that they didn't particularly enjoy. Soccer Neophytes podcast, our mate Nate He's got Jurassic World Dominion. He's up there. Uncharted. Pinocchio, the Disney version of it, he did not
Oh
enjoy.
dear.
I didn't get round to bothering to watch that one, but yeah. Ash Dolan. Pinocchio is also on there. Lightyear, Jurassic World Dominion gets another vote. He also Halloween Ends, which is one that he gave quite an impassioned rant about last time he was on our podcast. Dave Evans. So Pinocchio, the Disney version, it's starting to sound like it might be the worst film of the year because everyone seems to absolutely detest it. Lightyear is also on his list, and Avatar 2 is in his bottom 5, just to piss you off, Stu.
I always
Nearly a
like
bit.
Dave.
It's nearly
Yeah.
2 billion now.
Incredible. Right, so the reason it's a top 3 rather than a top 5 is because there was a bit of a through line in most of our lists. So I think first, let's talk about Netflix, because I don't think Netflix have had a particularly good year. So I'll give you the cast of one of these films that was released on Netflix, and it was on both mine and Stu's list. This film was. It was starring David Duchovny, Leslie Mann, Fred Armisen, Keegan-Michael Key, Karen Gillan, Peter Serafinowicz, Guz Khan, Maria Bakalova, and our boy Pedro. That is a fucking great cast that you would watch in pretty much anything. But The Bubble was probably the epitome of everything that is wrong with Netflix films for me. The other one that was my honourable mention, and it was in your top 5, Matt, is a TV show called Blockbuster, which was Melissa Fumero, who most of us will know from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and Randall Park, who is great in pretty much everything apart from Blockbuster. Matt, tell me about Blockbuster, why you didn't like it, before we talk about Netflix in general.
And I think this feeds into the Netflix general conversation, is that Blockbuster just isn't must-see TV, but it's not disposable fluff either. There's just something that's just not very, how do I put it? It's not very satisfying about it. Like, I'm watching it expecting, with the cast members that it's got, to laugh and to find it really funny. If I'm not finding it funny, then some of the things about Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which actually tugs at your heartstrings, I didn't really get from it either. I didn't get the nostalgia hit of it being Blockbuster either, because I remember Blockbuster, and I remember, that some of the happiest memories of my life are going, not necessarily to Blockbuster, but going and getting a VHS and watching it and being dead excited about it. I don't even get that joyfulness out of this show either. It was just unnecessary filler fluff, which leads on to what I feel Netflix has become, in that you get your big hitters, your Stranger Things, things that, shows of that nature, Wednesday. But if you're not, the oversaturation of content on there it's far too much, and it's not quality, it's quantity in Netflix at the minute. I find myself like, it's bizarre to say I've got nothing to watch on Netflix, but nothing appeals to me because there's so much, and I know the quality isn't going to be great. So I find myself not watching anything on there, as weird as that sounds.
You just returned to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia for the 20th time. Yeah.
I think one of the big problems is it's not curated.
Curated, yeah, that's the right word.
It's not that enough. There's too much. It's because so much comes out every week that everything's just pushed to the new releases, and then you have obviously your top 10 of the UK and wherever, and your list, but there's not like a critically acclaimed or critics' choice of the month or section on there. And obviously there isn't, because they're promoting their own service, and if they did, half that shit wouldn't be on there. But like, I just got it up here, and not because it's exciting or anything. You look at the top TV shows of the year. This is from them on hours watched. So Like Stranger Things, 1.87 billion hours. That was number one. Wednesday, number two. Dharma. I thought Dharma was good.
Mm-hmm.
Bridgerton, who knows? All of Us Are Dead, season one. Extraordinary Attorney Woo, Inventing Anna. The Watcher, which Sandman season one, which we kind of everyone seemed to like. And Virgin River season four. Half of that stuff I've never even no idea what any of it is.
They do a very poor job of advertising stuff that isn't the biggest of big hitters, don't they?
Yeah,
Especially within their TV work of it. It's very it's well hidden. Like that Inventing Anna, which I was sort of vaguely interested in at the time, but I don't think I've ever seen an advert or heard anyone actually talk about it. I've no idea if it's good, bad, or what, because there's been no one discussing it and no adverts for it. They do a really piss poor job of highlighting their good in between a lot of bad.
And the thing is about it is like for a platform that is getting only negative press recently and price increases and everything else, you'd think they'd be going like hand over fist to try and keep people on side. Except it feels like the opposite, if anything. Like I remember when Netflix was the viable and futuristic alternative to love film, and like how far away from that does it feel now? Like it seems like every week there's another like serial killer documentary that I haven't got the time to watch, and like I'm beyond FOMO now with it. Like I'm beyond caring because I'm never going to keep up with the swaves of content that comes out. That like if the ancient apocalypse come and gone in the like its hype came and gone within literally days. Like not a soul's talking about it anymore because it's just the next thing, the next thing, the next thing.
Well, I'll watch that in 3 days. But again, it is because of the way they still do it. It's the price you pay. That if they released something every day, like if that came out weekly over 8 weeks, and you had that that came out on a Monday, and then you had I don't know Wednesday on Wednesday, and then so you had something per
Proper
day,
network TV style.
yeah, over the space of 8 weeks. Then you got something to look forward to every day, rather than okay, we'll watch this, done and dusted, on to the next thing. I think however revolutionary it was to start with, it's now kind of almost a parody of itself because it doesn't work for everything. Like Stranger Things. I mean, I just muted everything. I didn't even watch it for 2 months later, did I? And so, well, what are you going to do? You're going to watch it. You're going to watch 2 episodes, 3 episodes a night, and you'd be done with it in the space of 2 weeks, and then you're waiting 18 months for the next series. It's just like things like this where, yeah, I could have done it and I could have spread it out, but it was there, and you're not going to say it's like being at a buffet. You're not going to say no for more sausage rolls. That's what they're there for. And then you look at the top 10. This is from Forbes, but it was released by Netflix. The top 10 in reverse order. Troll, which that looks interesting. I'll probably will watch that eventually. But again, it was on there for a week and then it was gone. And then it was buried. Put it on the watch list. And the only thing that ever gets done on the watch list is Christmas films, because obviously Enola Holmes 2, no. Senior Year, The Man from Toronto, The Tinder Swindler, which that was quite funny, Sea Beast, Hustle, Purple Hearts, The Adam Project, and then number one film of the year was The Grey Man.
Ridiculous. I mean, that brings us on to the next part of it, which was specifically The Bubble as a movie. The problem I'm having with Netflix, the movies more so than the TV series, they're all very much, they give too much freedom to their creatives. And like I like the idea of a creative being able to put out what they feel is the best work. But sometimes it just takes having a good director and a good editor to get the best out of it, because sometimes less is more. And the bubble just went on and fucking on for ages. I don't even know how long the film was, but it felt like it was 3 hours long. It felt ridiculous. The Grey Man was another one. It just went on, and it was the most generic of its
Yeah.
genre. There was nothing new or interesting about it. All they done is they threw a lot of money at big name directors and said, you can do whatever you want. But if anyone can tell me what happens in The Grey Man 2 weeks after watching it, I will give you a fucking gold medal. Because I think you have either read the synopsis or you are lying. And then you also had stuff like that Senior Year, which you mentioned, Stu. That's probably the worst film I saw last year in retrospect. It was so unfunny. And it had Australian girl who was in Pitch Perfect, who played Fat Amy in Pitch Perfect. I can't remember her name. Rebel Wilson, yeah. I really like her in most things. And this was just bollocks. It was terrible nonsense. Spiderhead, Slumberland, The Adam Project was another one. Big names all involved, allowed to do whatever the fuck they wanted. And it just produced such a mediocre film. And as Stu said earlier, sometimes mediocre is worse than bad. And that's what a lot of Netflix has become, is just mediocre film after mediocre film. It's so ungratifying having watched it, having spent like 2.5 hours watching a film and think, I've had absolutely no nourishment from that film on any level.
Yeah. I mean, the bubble looks so promising as well. It was such a disappointment just because even just the idea of it, basing again, we mentioned it last week, I think, basing something around the pandemic. You think, yeah, okay, cool idea. But whereas Glass Onion did it as a kind of throwaway thing, this was based about lockdown and we can't see each other and it just didn't work, did it? It was look at it. It was 2 hours 5 minutes long. That was all it was, and it just wasn't funny. You know, everyone was wasted. Like the talent, like you said, the amount of people in it. Again, you look at the poster and you think, well, this is gonna be excellent. It has to be. And like some of them were on screen for about 20 minutes, and you can't. Again, I mean, I watched The Grey Man 3 times with 3 different people, so I could because it's exactly what you say. It's almost like when we went through that period of time in like the PS3 360 era where you had a certain like kill switch, which is like generic third person shooters. Every month there was another one. It was like an 80s film with a modern budget. That's what it was like. Which is no bad thing if you like 80s action films, but it just they have the swagger, or it was just very. The action itself was fine, everything else wasn't, which is not fun in the end. And again, trying to think of what it was about other than a kind of semi-assassin wronged. I can't tell you, and I've watched it 3 times.
It's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, but nothing was worse than The Bubble. It was just bad. Very, very bad.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to say just before we move on from Netflix, specifically in regards to Blockbuster, if you've got a VPN, check out the last Blockbuster documentary on Netflix.
Yes.
I think it's only on the US one. I don't think we've got it on the British one. That is exactly what the series should have been. It was funny and uplifting and about the last Blockbuster in America. So I would say check out that film rather than waste a single second watching the TV series, because it just wasn't fun. The other studio which had a bit of a through line on our list was Marvel. Both the cinematic universe and the whatever the one Morbius is attached to. I don't even know anymore. Morbius was the embodiment of, the meme of that person holding up the sign saying, our expectations for you were low, but Jesus Christ. Like, yeah, that's what this film was. We expected bad and it was worse. Like, what more can you say? Stu, Morbius was on your list, wasn't it?
I mean, you know when people started saying like hashtag it's Morbin time,
Yeah,
and I started second guessing myself to if that was even in the film or not. After a while, because I thought, well, everyone's saying it. Like, did I miss something? And I think we said it at the time, or like the week after we watched it, that it felt like 25 years old.
Yeah,
It
it
felt
did, didn't
it
it?
felt like something. If this had come out like the week after Underworld, or or like Blade Trinity or something like that,
Yeah.
then you wouldn't even doubt it yourself, because it felt like that. It looked like that at points with some of the CG. And Matt Smith was the best part about the film, completely.
Yeah.
And that was him taking the piss and hamming it up. It was a farce, right? It was from start to finish, and you kind of think, what are you trying to do? Like, what was it What was it aiming for? Because it didn't tick any boxes other than to laugh at it. And the fact that they really released it because they thought it was popular, it was the best thing of the year.
That was hilarious that they were trolled into re-releasing it, and then no fucker went to see it. It was terrible. I'm really glad that Matt Smith got another crack at 2022 by doing House of the Dragon. So like he still ended the year on a high, because if the only thing you knew of 2022 for Matt Smith was Morbius, you'd think he was terrible. But like he was the best thing in it, but it was such a bad film. I kind of want to revisit it and see if I have the same. Like I can watch Spider-Man 3 now and laugh at it. It's awful, but there's a level of so bad it's good to it. I wonder if Morbius is going to have that in like maybe 6 months' time. I'll be able to watch and laugh at the absolute ridiculousness of it. I mean, just the post-credit scenes alone are fucking unbelievable. When you bring in 89 Batman out of nowhere for one post-credit scene, and then you do another post-credit scene with him in again, with all of his gear. Like, well, where have you got that from, mate? None of it made a lick of sense. It was the stupidest film I have seen. And that might make me enjoy it in the summertime when I give it a rewatch, I think.
Well, that is the thing, because that was why I did want to go and watch it again, because at the time it pissed me off how bad it was. But we went in with an open mind, thinking, oh well, it's okay. The Sony, I mean, Venom was fine. Venom 2 was bad. Let's go with an open mind. It can't be that bad, can it? And then you watch it and go, that was like 2 hours gone, where I again, no expectations, because I knew it was going to be shit. It was borderline, but it was so bad. I kind of regret putting it on here now, because I kind of want to watch it and laugh at it now, because it's almost taken on. It's almost like The Room. Like, it's got cult status for being so bad.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I watch it again and it's not as bad as I think, I'm going to be disappointed all over again for a different reason. So maybe I should just leave it in the past as a disappointment and leave it there.
Yeah. See, I still maintain, though, that Venom is the best Spider-Man related film that has been since the Tobey Maguire films. Venom 2 is brilliant. It's a love story between a man and his alien. It's excellent. It's the best one. Matt, you said you had a Marvel related rant you wanted to go on at some point.
I just think it's stuff that I've just like kind of said all before, really, in that this was the year that I lost Marvel, and it was the year that everything since Endgame, the irony of it being the end game of anything decent for Marvel, just shine through. And like, I can't think of something perhaps more so than the fall of Vince McMahon that has shit the bed quite as much as Marvel in 2022. Everything has been so disposable and just downright awful since. There feels like there's no plan. There's obviously a plan, there's phases, but there's no build. Nothing feels exciting anymore. It just feels like a constant treadmill or a conveyor belt of films. But then, Christ, if you try and tell anybody that on the internet, the internet will come after you in its droves. And like, you know, I know it's going to sound like fun police stuff, but when you see the videos of people that are like celebrating the announcements of these phases, I just felt I wish that technology would advance quicker, that we can wipe these people out in a fast, smooth, swift action. Because it's like I don't get it. Like, I don't know what people there's being in a cult, but like, at least cults have good leaders, and at least there's something worth being a part of, at least in their view. I don't know. I just don't get it. Like, it's gone beyond like accepting that Marvel is like this huge staple of society. Like, it's not anymore. Like, I don't think anybody cares anymore. The fact that it's got this model now of just being on Disney Plus mere months after like release just shows that like it's fell into a category of not being worth anyone's time anymore. Like, will we ever get anything like Avengers Assemble again? Like, can you honestly say that we will? Even the biggest fans of it, there can't be much to look forward to until we get like, because the character, like the proper build of characters, and it goes back to what I said about the Netflix stuff about oversaturation of content. Like I mentioned before, like I shouldn't have to dive, I shouldn't have to watch 40 hours of content to try and make sense of a poorly scripted or poorly made film in order for it to make a bit more sense. It's not reasonable, and it's a soft expectation. Rant over.
It really is. So I've just had a quick look at what was actually released in 2022 for Marvel. So we had Doctor Strange, Thor 4, Black Panther 2, Moon Knight, Ms. Marvel, She-Hulk, Werewolf by Night, and the Guardians Christmas film, which I don't think was anywhere near as many as were released in 2021, if I remember correctly. 2021 felt like it was such an oversaturation of the thing that they sort of scaled it back a little bit last year.
I mean, Doctor Strange aside, what's worth anyone's time there?
Well, talking about worth, Doctor Strange, Thor, and the films bought in $2.7 billion. So when you say that no one cares anymore, there's your answer. People do. But out of all that stuff, Moon Knight was you don't have to ever see Moon Knight again, which was, again, a wasted opportunity after the first episode. I thought that the first one was really good. It only kind of went downhill. But I'm still saying to this day that Ms. Marvel is class. It's the best thing they did all year. And it's buried on Disney Plus, but it was there. People talked about it, but again, we know why a lot of people didn't talk about it. Mm-hmm. And it's a shame, because she was superb. A lot of people in that, and you do need to watch that for the continuity of what's going to happen soon. And they'll never give it credit because of what it is. And it's ridiculous. But that was the best thing that out of the MCU related stuff that came out last year, and hardly anyone saw it.
I agree. I think Doctor Strange was quite a good film. I think that was my highlight of the year for Marvel, to be honest. I had quite a lot of fun with that movie. That might have been going in with little to no expectations, maybe. I don't know. And the Guardians Christmas 45-minute mini film, that was fun. But that's mostly because I like Chris Pratt and I like Dave Bautista and Karen Gillan. But really, there was no great overarching theme to that I think will pay off in the next 50 hours worth of hashtag content that I'll be pumping out. But again, it was just a year of content for the sake of content, it felt like. There was very little that was either A, artistically worthy, or even B, narratively worthy. It felt like it was just another year of treading water, which is pretty much how it's felt since Endgame. Everything has felt like it's treading water. Maybe the point is that it's going to be with Jonathan Majors, Kang or Krang or whatever the fuck his name is.
Krang.
Maybe that's going to be the big that's going to kick it in the arse and we'll move forward, but it doesn't feel like it. And Thor 4 was the worst thing in the Marvel universe, without a shadow of a doubt. It is fucking dreadful. I'm embarrassed to say that I like Taika Waititi's film because of how bad that movie was. It's awful. Black Panther was... I'd put 2 on my list originally. It was going to be Thor and Black Panther, because those two, I just thought Black Panther was just dull. And for a film that was about the loss of someone who absolutely everybody loves as a human being and also within his own world as the Black Panther, it should have been a lot more emotional, and it was really drab. The villains were boring. The villains were fucking the creatures from Avatar. I don't want to see Avatar. I don't want to see Avatar in the MCU. And that was what they gave me. It was just crap. It was such a letdown of a film. Marvel need to pare it back a little bit before going forward, but the latest reports have been that they're just going to ramp it up again, and they're going to be pumping it even more. Said it before, less is more, but these things, they believe that more is more. It's
And
disappointing.
and people still go in the droves, in the millions, and it makes ridiculous amounts of money all over the world. But again, that was another one, Black Panther, where initially when I walked out and I thought, oh, that was okay. But thinking about it afterwards, a couple of months out of the action now, there ain't much you can think of what actually happened other than the CG things that could have been Chitauri from Avengers Assemble. And it went way too far again in CG land, which we criticised all year long for, and we know why, because they were overworked and they couldn't be asked in
And
the end.
underpaid. And yeah.
And if they're doing it internally now for the next one, if that's in place now, then fine, whatever. But a lot of that needed work, and it just took away from. You look at the early films, and like I did a couple of years ago, a lot of that CG's fine. It's pretty good. Some of it's outstanding at times, and then you look at the whole of Phase 4, obviously remote working and whatever. But still, when you've got other films that come out in them circumstances, again, Avatar: The Way of the Water, which is the most visually incredible thing of all time, regardless of what you think of the film, there's no excuse for it. There's no excuse whatsoever. When that thing can come out after being made in a got a Lord of the Rings style with 3 other films in pandemic times, literally underwater, with CG on top, and it comes out looking like that, there's no excuse for anyone anymore.
No, there's not. Right, okay, that's 2022 dealt with now. We can put it all behind us, all the good, the bad. Next week, we'll be looking at the preview of what is to come between I say January, we're most of the way through the month. So we'll be talking about what we've seen in January and then looking forward to what's going to happen in the first half of 2023. Please make sure that you've got us on whatever podcatcher it is that you're listening so that you don't miss an episode. And if you could leave us a review, we would truly appreciate that. Please make sure you've got us on the socials as well, at Cage Fighting Pod, on all of the socials. And if you've got any questions or anything, you can either tweet at us or you can email us on cagefightingpod@gmail.com. So for this week, Matt, would you like to say goodbye?
Take it easy, everybody. Make 2023 your biatch. And hopefully you can kick it off with a bit of a flyer this month.
Stu, do you want to say goodbye?
Everyone just watch The Last of Us. Just forget the whole of 2022 and just watch The Last of Us on Sky Atlantic, Sky Go, whichever way or legal means you want to do it. Just watch it. It's class. Superb. Goodbye.
It's goodbye from me, and remember, be excellent to each other.